Welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining us on our virtual care seminar. So I am Erica, and those of you who doesn't know me, I'm the customer marketing manager at Unilever. And as part of my role, I look after our elderly care operators. So before I pass you on to Alex and Paul, I just wanted to set the scene a little bit. And by now that you probably heard that we are Unilever Food Solution is the proud sponsor of NACC Care Chef of the Year competition in 2021. And NACC actually extended their deadline for their entries until the 14th of May. So if you haven't already done so, you still have a little bit of time to join this amazing culinary competition. It's really all about recognition and celebration of care chefs and their talents and specific knowledge and skills related to the care sector. So as part of the competition rule, NACC is looking for a 2-course menu, a main course and a dessert, obviously suitable for care settings. The judges will be looking at many different elements such as nutritional content, presentation, texture, taste, and very importantly, the combined food cost for both courses should be no more than £2.25 per head. And this is actually based on 3 portions. So don't worry, at the end of this seminar, I will be sending you a follow-up email with all the information that you need to know about the competition rules, as well as how to enter. And that was me, and I will pass you on to Alex and Paul. I really hope that you will enjoy this session. Thank you.
Thanks, Erica. Well, thank you for joining us today. Paul's actually going to kick this off because one of the key things about competition is all about timing and managing your time effectively. So, Paul?
Thanks, Alex. So we're going to double act this session today. So Alex is going to do the main course and I'm going to do the dessert. And like Alex says, time management is key for any competition. And as you know, you've got 90 minutes to do these 2 courses. So when I was thinking about a dessert to do, there were a couple of elements for me to think about. Okay, what's going to be tasty? What can I do in the time frame? And what actually is a resident going to like as well? So I thought I'd keep it traditional, but with a twist. So I'm going to do a baked vanilla rice pudding. And that's going to be served with ginger poached rhubarb and a mango and cardamom semi-freddo. All that does sound quite a lot of work for myself. These elements can be done with minimal stove work. So the baked rice pudding, we can get it in a minute, and then we can almost forget about it, and then we can concentrate on the main course and the garnish elements to my dessert. The semi-freddo is going to be using the mango carte d'or mousse, and obviously that's kind of a semi-frozen ice cream, which again we can get it on early, put it in the freezer, and again forget about it until towards the end of our 90 minutes when we're thinking about garnishing and plating up. So my first job really is to get the rice pudding on. So like I said, it's a baked one, so quite simple. I'm just going to add some flavouring into that. So I've got a cinnamon stick, just give us a nice warming notes to that. In with the rice, a little bit of sugar because we're worried about too much sweetness because every element's got a little bit of sweetness to it. And I'm just going to use a little bit of vanilla essence. You just peel me a bit of tin foil, please, Chef. Yes. In with some whole milk, again, great for calcium. So when we're talking about our nutritional element. I know we're not allowed commies, but for the purposes of today, Alex is my commie, vice versa, obviously. Thank you, Chef. Pleasure. So this was going to take about 70 minutes to bake on about a 160. So, thinking about designing your menu, think about the main course and going, actually, do I need the temperature of the oven to be different temperatures if I'm going to bake this? So maybe work your way around that if you wanted to do something like a baked rice pudding as a dessert. Just think about your temperature times if you've only got one oven. And that was going to go in the oven. Like I said, that would take roughly an hour, 70 minutes, and we'll come back, have a look at that. Then we'll add the extra elements. So that's my bit done for the start, Alex. You want to start your main course?
Yeah, sure. So when we were talking to some previous winners, they had lots of advice for anyone thinking about competing. Obviously, food, budget, super important. But one of the feedback was just follow the rules, guys. Read the rules and understand what you can and can't do. Another chap up in Scotland turned around and he said to me, keep it really simple. Think about what the residents in your home will enjoy and translate that into a competition dish. So we thought we'd go traditional, as Paul said, a rice pudding, nice, home, warming, hearty food. And speaking of hearty food, I thought I would do a faggot. So something traditionally from the West Country, plenty of offal, plenty of cheap cuts of meat, so that we could get that lamb in there, nice sort of rich lamb flavour. Thanks, Tom. Good rich flavour, lots of fat in there, but then also really importantly, things like vitamin D coming from the liver, all of the B vitamins coming from that rich irony meat. So we've got liver, we've got some heart, we've got some lamb breast, which I've just diced up, and some pork belly. So all reasonably cheap cuts that can be just minced up last minute when you're there to build your faggot. So we've got there the mince that I've done through the machine a minute ago. I didn't think you'd want to listen to us powering through that. So to that mince, you can see it's nice and soft. It's got all of those elements in there. We're going to add in some onions that have been roasted down. Really important we're roasting them because we're going to add that sweetness to the dish. Okay, once I finish roasting the onions and getting that caramelization on them, I've also added in the breadcrumbs and toasted them as well, just amplifying that flavor layering. So as we said, this is all about good food for everyone. And what we always talk about here is how much flavor we can impart in a dish. So right now we've got caramelized onion adding that sweet note. So you've got all that rich meat, iron from the liver and from the heart. You want to just sweeten it up a little bit. Toasted yeasty breadcrumbs, they go in. Okay, and then we're going to add in just a small bit of the Knorr roast beef bouillon. And the reason we're doing that, again, is to simply amplify the flavour. Okay, so this is only 10 grams worth of paste, but it's really going to add just a little bit extra meaty notes to the dish, which we think is important, especially dealing with residents whose taste buds might have deteriorated over time. We're going to add in dried thyme, okay, and salt and pepper. Again, with my costings, I have got specific weights that sit for the measurements of salt and pepper, but I also built myself a little buffer just in case when we try it, it needs some more. So I've added in a little extra cost there. And my dish, well, Paul was very generous. He gave me £1.70 to spend, and I used the whole lot. So thank you, Paul. Okay.
You've used the roast beef pudding on there. Could you use any of the other ones?
Yeah, you could use the lamb one. As I said, for me, it was more about the sweetness and also that beef fat that's gone into it. It really sort of helps elevate the entire dish. So that's why I used it. It wasn't, it was for no other reason. I would always keep it in that meat family just to bring it home.
I think that's right. You're saying about that, adding the flavour, and I think for competition work, if you think the judges have got to take quite a lot of stuff, so it's your food has got to be well seasoned and really flavourful to stand out. I think sometimes that's in the pressure of a competition environment. Sometimes where chefs fall down when they don't season correctly or enough. So just remember that seasoning's key, but it's not just lumping in loads of salt. It's other elements that you can add in there to create that seasoned and tasty food.
Right, so that's all mixed together and combined. Hope you can see that. And rather than using pig's caul and adding more cost to the dish, I'm going to just use some cling film. I'm going to poach them as individual balls. So I'm just going to make those up. Each ball weighs approximately about 110 to 115 grams. I'm not going to weigh each one for you right now, but you get a rough idea. So your phone, should.
Whose phone's that?
Right. So just going to roll that up, and that's going to form the centre of our dish anyway. So we want it to look nice and pretty. Tie it up, and I've got my water on ready. The great thing about this, again, time management, we can poach it early. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to overcook because you've got all that fat in there. So if you're a judge and you're tasting lots and lots of dishes, and you get to one and it's got no seasoning in, it's, you know, cold, this one you can bide your time and you can do it justice. And always think about serving. You know, Paul, you mentioned earlier, you know, seasoning dishes and all the rest of it, that's super, super important. But also serving it on a hot plate and making sure that when the judges have got it, it's lovely and hot.
And I think that's you know, it might seem really quite basic, 2 little hints, but you know, again, you know, if you're under pressure and you know someone's shouting out 10 minutes to go, chef, you know, you do forget those kind of things. But that's sometimes where you might lose marks or points. You know, where a judge comes along, touches the plate, and they know it's cold. You know, and all your hard work almost goes down the drain where your food's gone cold, and actually as a judge you can't really taste what you do. So it's just those little tips at the end. You know, when you are under pressure, try and remember hot plates, season your food.
So with this as well, you know, we only need 3 plates, yeah, and you're going to have leftover mix. So this mix, for example, will do 5, but mincing anything smaller just wouldn't work. So what I'd recommend is that you always finish what you start. So the judges don't walk around and see a whole load of wastage sitting there, you know, not being used. They can see that you've thought about, okay, I can carry on producing this and make sure I've got enough. That way the judges don't think, oh, they just don't care about wastage. For speed and obviously for your viewing pleasure, I will not make them all, but I will make a 3rd one just in case. And it's always good as well in a competition to have that mentality, isn't it, Paul?
Exactly. And we can have that for dinner tonight.
We having dinner tonight? that was new news, sorry.
COVIDly secure, obviously.
Yeah. One thing that Paul did start to say was about time management and mise en place lists and things that you do normally in your home. These things get amplified when you're in a competition environment. So do think about writing a good list of everything you need to do, literally everything. I mean, just like us before we started this today, you know, putting out the pans, methodically thinking through what am I going to do at what point. Write it all down, get your list and tick it off. Have a time plan. So if you're getting behind, you know what you need to pick up on. You're not going to forget, especially when it comes to plating, because you're going to have lots of different elements to do.
And I think on that as well, think of equipment. You know, there's nothing worse than going, oh, I need a spatula, please. Oh, I haven't got one. So, you know, go through those levels of mise en place and go, well, what do I need for that? If it's sauteing broccoli, okay, I need a pan. Do I need a spoon to put some butter in? Whatever it may be, think about the equipment. Get your list next to that, almost that mise en place list as well. So then you know you've got yourself covered. I think sometimes it's better to have too much than not enough, you know, because that could mean that the thought in your mind or the picture of your dish doesn't turn out quite right because you haven't got that right equipment.
Yeah, and also clean down. Make sure you're cleaning down. Make sure you're working in a nice, clean environment, because everyone's watching what you're doing, and that will influence how they're enjoying the dish that you produce at the end of the day. So clean down. Make sure you're working in a clean environment. So my faggots are on and poaching. Really, really quick, really easy to do. Just some mincemeat, that caramelised onion, toasted breadcrumbs, bit of bouillon, thyme, salt, pepper, mixed together, moulded into a ball and put onto poach. So,
and how long roughly do they take?
About 10, 12 minutes max, because we're going to give them a bit of colour.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to strain my sauce, which I'm going to make now. And I'm just going to let them sit in there so they can stay hot, so you don't have to worry too much about them. Again, the speed and your appreciation, we've browned off the base of the sauce. So this is some onions, celery, mushrooms, and some shallots, all caramelised up. I thought this is one of those areas where we talk flavour layering. We could have gone, because it's lamb, the mint in the sauce. We've gone for a bit of Madeira to bring some richness and some sweetness. Again, I'm really keen on developing that sweet flavour, because one of the flavour profiles that doesn't change as you get older is that ability to taste sweetness. So anytime we can layer that flavour of sweetness and umami together, it should help the resident really, really enjoy the dish. And again, as judges, we're looking for the care chef of the year, someone who understands their residents and understands what they want. So for me, it's all about balance and flavour. So I'm just going to add in that Madeira. Some of it went in the pan. And let that just reduce down.
Is there anything else you could put into that? To that sauce for extra flavour?
The extra flavour, yes, but because I ran out of budget, no. Okay, so for me, I'd have some thyme in there, maybe some garlic, just to help boost it up. You know, hey, if it's a beef faggot, some nice mustard, something like that, English mustard or whole grain mustard in at the end to help finish the sauce and give it more richness, more body, a little bit of heat. I mean, honestly, it's endless. Could have pork in there, you know, I could put pork in the base of the faggot as well to help bring that richness through. But unfortunately, we've all got budgets to work to. But I still think that what we've got here is not a limiting budget. If you take it creatively and think about the dishes, so, you know, Paul needed to use some lemon and I needed some acidity to cut through the sauce. So perfect. I'll use a small bit of his lemon, help cut through the richness, but it didn't cost me a penny. Now, obviously, you guys are going to be working on your own, so you get to think about your total dish. We approach this slightly differently.
I think you're right. Again, you know, think about those classic flavours that we're trying to get to. You know, is it savoury? You know, is the sauce too sweet if you put in Madeira or anything like that? So make sure it's balanced. You know, is it salty? You know, is it too? If you're putting any spice into it, it's too spicy. So make sure the balance is right.
And again, we put into consideration the nutritional aspects as well. That's super important. It's not all about loading it filled with fat, is it? It's about having balance. So why are you using what you're using and what's it bringing to the dish? So the gravy, not so important in terms of nutritional impact. I'm trying to think here about that, again, that layer of flavour. Okay, so I'm going to use the Knorr gravy granules for meat, which are gluten-free, to help thicken this sauce. So really, really simple. Just add that in. Give it a stir. I'm just going to let that boil down just for a couple of minutes, thicken it up. And then I'm going to pass it, only because I don't want all of the particulates of flavour that I've added. So all of the carrot, the mushrooms, the onions, I'm going to actually pass it off, which seems like a waste, but it's not. This is all about the amplification of flavour. So right now, that's the key. My faggots are poaching nicely.
It's kind of really interesting that you use the gravy granules to thicken your sauce. But that's not just made the gravy and that's your sauce. You've added it as a thickener, as almost as the base, and then you've added those extra layers, like you said, from the Madeira, from your vegetables that are softened down and caramelised. You know, it's just working a little bit smarter, because we know that you have to use one of the Unilever products across the menu. So, you know, hopefully this demo is going to show you that we use those as a base. So it's not just, okay, what it says on the box. It's actually just helping you create those different elements to the dish.
Right, thanks, Paul. So we're almost there in terms of my dish. I'm going to plate up in a minute, but just to tell you the whole dish, because I never did that, did I? No, it's a slightly odd way to do it. But thanks for jogging me.
Can you tell them now?
Okay, I will do. So I'm going to do the faggot with the Madeira sauce, mashed potato, classic. Again, spinach, which I'm just going to finish with a bit of nutmeg and some peas. And that is going to be finished with a free pesto. Well, free-ish. So I'm paying for the almonds and the oil.
Yeah.
But I went out on my dog walk this morning and I picked some wild garlic. So in actual fact, Kerry's based near me, she'll tell you, we've got fields and fields and fields of wild garlic just sitting there. Think about the competition. Think, what can you get around you for free? You've got to be sensible. We know what's in season. We know what's available. If you're going to do something like that, for me, I think it's a good idea to use what you can that's all around you. So part of what we've been talking about, again, flavour layering, building flavours, building profile. The mash can't be plain, can it? We're going to have to think about what we can add. And again, a simple thing that you can do whilst those potatoes are boiling, while your rice pudding's in, wrap a garlic bowl in foil, stick it in the base of the oven, and just let it bake. And what you end up with is a really sweet garlic flavour that's fantastic to add in to mashed potatoes. Could have added into the base of the faggots, but for me, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of this sauce.
Yeah.
Just going to add a tiny bit of this into the mashed potato base. So,
and do you think that's the same when you're saying about being a bit clever? Do you think that's the same when, you know, if any of the homes have got any hard herb bushes out in the grounds, you know, could you snip a little bit out of?
Yeah, definitely. And you know, you'll see I've got my garnish as well. Do we go too chefy? Should we go too chefy and stick in, you know, wild garlic flowers because they're free? We could do. I don't think we'll do it this time, but I've got them over there just to show you.
I think if you can show that, if you can explain it, going, actually, our home does this, so I've got this for free.
Yeah.
You know, it could be, you know, the difference between going through or not, you know, or winning the competition or not. So actually, if there's a reason for it, and you say, actually, our home, we've got loads of wild herbs or whatever it may be, or edible flowers, you know, and they cost me nothing, you know. If it's got a place on a dish, then I would use it.
And that's it. Again, if you've got that engaging story, so your residents are supporting growing the herb garden, and you can tell us that story, they're the things that really matter to us, is actually how you've included the residents in what you've done and what you've created. Have you taken them on a journey? Have you got them tasting the dish? What has their feedback been? What did you change because they told you needed to change? Yeah, they're the things that, to me, they're really important because they bring the entire dish to life. So the sauce is cooked. I've got my cream on, my butter on, and I want it to infuse. And you've got that lovely garlic, I don't know if you can see it, but a lovely garlic puree there. So literally just squeezed it out and there it is, it's ready. Just need a bit of a smash with a knife, super smooth. Gonna change the colour of the mash slightly, gonna give it a creamier, a sort of golden hue to it. So I'm going to reduce that down. Going to let that come down with a little bit of seasoning in there. So some salt and some pepper. And again, another great place where you can add different layers of flavour. You might want to not use regular cream, but use a sour cream to help cut through fat. You might think to add in some herbs or okay, a little bit of heat, some mustard seed, something to take it up a notch. But we've gone plain and simple this time. So whilst that's just reducing down, I'm going to go for my my next pan, which is frozen spinach. No need to get fresh in. Frozen is absolutely fine. It's got the nutrients of fresh spinach, but you know, less cost, less prep, but it's okay if you've got a reason as to why. You know, who's buying fresh peas and podding them for you know, your 100-bed care home? There's nothing wrong with a frozen pea. I certainly recommend it. So, how are we looking with them? They're looking good to me. Gotcha. That's all right, don't worry. You can lend a hand if you want. You're not allowed. Thought you might say something like that. Okay, where's the oil gone? 10 seconds. In the cupboard. Right, just going to grab some oil. So I'm going to brown off the faggot. I'll literally just take it out. I'm only going to do one for the purposes of the demo. So, of course, I would temperature probe that, check it's cooked completely if I was doing a competition, making sure that everything has been adhered to and it's safe. I might do two, just in case Paul stitched me up in some way.
I think, again, it's going to be a pressured environment, but you think about your kitchen practices. So like Alex said earlier about cleaning down, same applies, like you would be in the home, temperature probe stuff, make sure you've written that down, so you're visible to the judges, because that'll be part of the criteria as well. Your kitchen safety, your cleaning down.
Right. My mash, my cream is almost reduced down. I like to reduce down the cream. It keeps the mash super smooth, super indulgent, super rich. So I think that's very important. Okay, and I'll add in the mash now. They're colouring off. As you can see, as Paul said, in the environment where you're finishing everything off, everything needs to be done super quick. It does get a bit pressurised. I'm now going to have to start juggling different pans. So, if it does go wrong, I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't cooked for a long time. So, I'm going to pass off that sauce. I've got a lovely rich gravy. Again, developing flavours, caramelising that. Those meatballs to faggots. Thank you, Paul. And then we just drop them in the sauce. And then we can just coat them, just gently, in the sauce. That'll help glaze them up. And then the next stage will be to drop the butter in there. That helps again, give it that glossiness, give it that coating. I don't know if you can see that, but there's the cream for the mashed potato, almost gone completely. So it's ready to add in the mash. I've pre-mashed my potatoes, but in the competition, we'll be expecting you to make those live. So I'll just do that. I want these a little bit loose. I don't want really thick potatoes. I want to have it nice and creamy on the plate. So they'll beat that in. You're beating in the seasoning, the garlic through there. Really nice creamy mash. Chef, the last part of my dish is the peas. So I'm just going to put those on. I'm not going to even use anything other than the fact that they're cold. I'm just going to put them on a light heat. Let them come up to temperature just gently. So there's not a lot of heat in there, but they're going to be hot by the end. I'm going to finish that with the wild garlic pesto. So that's going to help bring both flavour and colour to the dish. Okay.
So these are just frozen peas.
Yep.
That you just kind of let defrost.
Yep, exactly.
There's nothing worse, is there, than overboiled peas, frozen peas, but they go all wrinkly. And it looks, and almost a shade of army green.
Exactly that. Exactly. So I'm going to finish the spinach now with a little bit of nutmeg. Again, give that warming flavour. So I've got the pepper in the faggot to help bring a little bit of heat, and the nutmeg's going to do the same thing. It's going to help elevate that flavour. I'm going to finish the sauce. I really should have found the dish that didn't have 35 elements in it, but too late now.
You're going, Chef.
Too late now.
You're doing well.
Right. And again, as I mentioned, I'm just going to take the end off that lemon to help cut through the richness. By adding in that butter to the sauce, it's going to add the glaze, but equally we need that acidity to help it be more palatable for the resident. Okay, here we go. Paul, do you fancy just put in that plate, then, please?
Do you want to check?
I can have one sleep, just there.
Just be careful, it's pop like that.
Here we go. Lovely, lovely. Thank you, Paul. All right, so I'm going to start with my mash. Start with my mash just in the centre of the plate. Not trying to be too clever with the presentation either. I just want, as you eat it, to get a little bit of everything. So mash, nice and hot, centre of the plate, creamy. The spinach again, seasoned, didn't season it. And again, check your seasoning. I'm not going to be eating this as we go because I've got a plate up, but you guys need to be checking as you're doing your seasoning on your final dishes. That's what Paul recommended when we started this, is to make sure you're tasting all the way through. Yeah, make sure that you check the flavours. So there you go, you've got mash, spinach, those peas should be just coming up to temperature now. So I'll just put them on here. I've got my wild garlic pesto, plenty of oil in there. So that oil can be used to cut through at the end of the dish with the sauce, the lamb sauce. Okay. Just plate that one. Take my faggot. Put that in the centre of the plate. Stir. So they're all dressed. A little bit of salt. A little bit of sugar. Help bring out that sweetness. Okay. And then we'll just scatter those around the plate. Help bring that real colour, vibrancy, and the oil that's on them, as I said, will split through the sauce and give it a really nice shine. The last bit, I hope, I might say, is to coat it again with a little bit of sauce, just to finish the dish. That there is my lamb faggot with peas and spinach. Thanks for sending the message, Tom, but I can't now see what's in the camera. So excuse me while I just come there. Just make sure you can see it. You see that? Before it slides off.
Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you. Great stuff. So Paul, over to you to finish off.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, so to go with my baked rice pudding, I have got my mango semifreddo. So what I did earlier, thank you, chef. So simply just whisked up the mango mousse powder with some whole milk, and I'll put a little bit of cardamom in there just to change the flavour. So the mango mousse is going to be nice and sweet, almost floral from that mango, and the cardamom's going to add another floral note in there. So I've got creamy, vanilla-y rice pudding, gingery sharp poached rhubarb, and then we've got this nice floral cold element to the dish to finish it off as well.
One thing that's really important though about using the mousse is if you're going to use one of the Carte products within your dessert, it can only be a component. It can't be the total dessert. So think about how you're going to approach the product. If you're going to use the creme brulee, we don't want to just see a creme brulee sitting in the middle of the plate with nothing else going on. It's got to be part of the total dish. So the way that Paul's done it is that we have that beautiful rich rice pudding with the Carte semifreddo, not mousse, bringing that cold element to the dish and bringing a little bit of difference to the dish. So a really interesting way to use the product.
Thanks, Alex. So I've just put a little bit of sugar and water in the pan, put a star anise in as well, and then I'm going to use some of the The Lord ginger puree as well, for my ginger element to poach my rhubarb. So the good thing about this as well, it's not going to be too sweet. So there's an element of a little pinch of salt in that puree and a little bit of vinegar. So it will counterbalance the sweetness of the sugar as well and the sweetness of the rhubarb, but still give you that ginger flavour. So I'm just going to think a bit about my presentation of this as well, rather than just lumping big squares of rhubarb. I've just cut them on the diagonal. See, I'm just going to poach those. So that's going to probably take me 6 to 8 minutes. A gentle poach. Give me time to get my rice pudding out the oven.
It's really important to think about how long you've got to spend on dishes and how much time you can put to each element. And say, get back to that timing plan. Think about what's possible. Think about what's feasible. I'm still sweating from doing the main course. So I think if we're going to do this, it's the perfect counterbalance, isn't it? So you can just put in the oven, almost forget about it, come back to it, and bang, your dessert is almost done.
Are you saying because I'm not sweating?
I'm just saying it'd be nice if you were working a little bit harder. Yes.
It's about careful planning. Remember, try and work smarter, not harder. Okay. Right. Can you just pass me over those, please? Sorry.
Yes.
Should do it myself. And the water, thanks. So once the mango, my semi-Fredo is frozen, I've just scooped that back out, blended it in the thermo, and that will give me more of almost a gelato kind of texture, where it's very smooth. Because it's going to knock the air out, that's fine, because I don't want it as a mousse. I want that real intense mango flavour that we'll get from the mousse powder, without the airy notes. So it just makes it a lot smoother. Hence, that's why we're going to call it a semi-Fredo. So in the interest of time, I think we're nearly getting there. I'll poach my rhubarb oil up. I'll just reheat that again a bit. And I'm pretty much ready to plate.
Oh, chef, that is the one you asked me to get. Yes. Is there anything else you could have done with the rice pudding in terms of flavouring?
Well, do you know what? It could have been, we could have used coconut milk rather than milk in there, just to make it a bit more, maybe the tropical theme.
Yeah.
From a cost point of view, I wanted to keep it down so I can give you more of that budget. So I've just gone standard milk, but coconut milk could be fine. A little bit of lemongrass or lime leaves, and then if we're going with the mango, you've got those kind of tropical flavours.
Yeah.
Change the rhubarbb to pineapple. And that could be tinned pineapple, and that could be more charred rather than poached rhubarb. Yeah, so you've got those Caribbean-y tropical flavours.
Nice.
Okay, let's plate up, shall we? So I just want a nice little bed of the rice pudding. My nice creamy cinnamony rice pudding with vanilla.
I think colours, visual impact on the dish, all of those things super important, especially in the desserts.
Yeah, and I think about the colour in the plates. I know in the rules it does say for the main course around 10 each plate. So remember that, because that will get you marked down if you use the wrong plate. So doesn't mean you have to stick to the boring plain whites. So think about colour and think about your dish and what you're putting on. So my poached rhubarb. And again, think about the tools that you could use. If you've got a little set of tongs, if you're doing something intricate, you can use that to put the rhubarb on, or squeezy bottle if you've got sauces or dessert sauces. I'll go in old-fashioned spoon.
So you've got cinnamon, you say ginger and star anise.
Ginger and star anise in my rhubarb.
Right, so lots of different flavours in there.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully what you're going to get is a creamy, sweet vanilla flavour to start with. then almost a sharp gingery flavour from the rhubarb. Just going to put a little bit of this sort of the brazen liquor in there as well. So again, that kind of highlights the red colour.
And how important is it to you as a judge when you're trying a dish and they say, oh, I've put cinnamon in here and I've put star anise and I've put ginger? Do you actually then go searching for those flavours? And if they're not there, how big a deal is that to you personally?
Well, of course, yeah. I think there's a common mistake in competitions that people will write down a great sounding menu, but that flavour doesn't come through, it doesn't deliver.
Right.
And for me, when I judge stuff, I always mark down that because you told me that it should taste of vinegar or star anise or ginger. And if it doesn't, then there's something technically gone wrong there.
Yeah.
So I would mark down for that. Yeah. Harsh it may be, but if you say it's on the menu, it'd be like saying, I'm going to do a faggot with spinach and peas and mash and don't put the peas on.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so an integral part of your dish, you say it's a flavour that I should expect, I wouldn't expect to taste it. So then I'm just going to put a little bit of the Semifreddo on. With my spoon was hot.
Let's get some more hot water. Yeah.
Just going to do a little wash of that if got the hot water. Thank you, Chef. If you just take this out a good, 10 minutes before we're ready to serve, and that should be soft enough. So I was too engrossed with Alex's dish.
And again, that's got a little bit of the cardamom pod in there just to help elevate the flavour.
It's going to be nice and floral, this.
Right. So again, especially if you're serving something that's hot and cold, make sure you get the judge's attention so they can see it when it's at its best. We may not get it to taste it, we might be tasting something else, but at least give us a shout, give us a wave, show us that your dish is done, and we can take a look at it at its best. Because something like this, when it starts to melt, we'll get over to it and we'll say, oh, what's happened there? But if we've seen it when it's at its best, we can judge that presentation score far more effectively.
So quite simple, baked rice pudding, baked vanilla rice pudding with ginger poached rhubarb and a mango semifreddo. And a little garnish there. All I've done is just thinly sliced a little bit of rhubarb, that's a little bit of sugar, and I'll sneak that in past the judges as a bit of mise en place as my garnish. But hopefully you can see that. Classic baked rice pudding with a little twist. Tastes good, different layers of flavour, and more importantly, it's time
effective.
Time effective.
It
doesn't take much time if we're doing the main course.
Great stuff.
So 2 dishes there, just some ideas, little tips to think about. Hopefully you enjoy it.
So we look forward to seeing you. We'll be out on the road judging all the regional heats and then there at the final at the NACC up in Nottingham. So we really can't wait to see what you guys get up to and how you do it. So Erica, back to you, please.
Brilliant. Well, I think time is up. Thank you so much for everybody attending and chefs, obviously. As mentioned at the beginning, we will be following it up with a email to all of you guys, where we will be sharing some documents with you in terms of entries, in terms of competition rules, as well as these lovely recipes that you just presented to us, Alex and Paul. So thank you very much. Have a lovely bank holiday weekend, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.